Clase, necesitamos los apuntes sobre the passive and or the impersonal say because they are the last things that we need to discuss for Unit 3B. So here we go. The impersonal say is what we'll start with. And the impersonal say is used to say that people, they, one, or you do something without having anyone particular in mind. That's why it's called impersonal. You're not talking about a specific subject. Grammatically speaking, in English, we should always say one, but I don't really know anyone that does that except for Mrs. O'Connor and Mrs. Rukavina, who are both retired. So, in order to form this, it's real simple. It's say plus the he, she, usted form of the verb. It's that simple. That's it. So if I wanted to say something like, people drive to the left in London. By people, I don't have anyone specific in mind. So I could say, they drive to the left in London, you drive to the left in London. Grammatically speaking, I should say, one drives to the left in London. But again, I don't know anyone who speaks like that. That would be the most grammatically correct in English, but this is what I would do. I would take say plus the he, she, usted form of the verb conducir, because conducir is to drive. So all I do, I don't say the word people at all. I start with say, and then I'm going to put the he, she form of the verb conducir in the present tense, and then I'll include the rest of my information. Londres is how you say London in Spanish. To the left is a la izquierda. So just fill in the he, she form of the verb conducir, which is spelled C-O-N-D-U-C-I-R if you're not catching it. People live well in France. I once heard that France has the most paid vacation days of any other country. I don't know if that was true or is still true, but I heard that they're living pretty well there as far as that goes. So if I want to say one lives well in France, I would just start with say, and then I'm going to have the he, she form of the verb to live, and I would say well and Francia, because that's how you say France in Spanish. So fill those in, and that's the impersonal say. It's just say plus the he, she form of the verb. Let's move on to the passive say. The passive say is used to say that something is done without having to say who does it. And this one, you use say plus the verb used like gustar. And you already have your gustar notes, or you should, and if you don't, you need them. And by them, at the bare minimum, I'm going to require that you have this screen on a paper that's turned to the side, so not up and down the way we usually have it, but so that it's wide from side to side and not thin from side to side, and you should have all this information. So if I say plus a verb used like gustar, that means I typically only use gusta or gustan, and that all depends on if the subject of the sentence, which of course can be omitted in Spanish, is singular, a verb infinitive, or a plural noun. And that's how this works. So again, when you turn in these notes for credit, you also will have to show me your gustar notes that look like this. So if you already have them, great. If you don't, no big deal. Take them down now, and your paper should be landscape orientation instead of portrait. Back to your notes over the passive say, that's all we do. So the passive say is used to say things like, cars are bought here. It's just a passive statement. I'm not saying that the people buy cars here. It's passive. Cars are bought here. So, again, I start with say, and I will say here, and then cars, which could be los carros or los coches, and I'm going to use the form of comprar, to buy, just like as if it was gustar. And since the subject is cars, please put the correct form of comprar there. Spanish is spoken here. Again, I'm going to start with say, and here, and according to gustar rules, which let me go back, it says that you need el or la plus the singular noun, los or las plus the plural noun. I would need to have el, español. I will say this though, this is a very common phrase, and They put on a lot of signs to say Spanish is spoken here, so like you can come in if you only are a Spanish speaker and feel comfortable here. You guys might see it on commercials. Like, there's a lot of Chicago lawyer commercials that also say this phrase, and they take out the L. It's just because it's become a really common phrase and the L has been taken out. But when in doubt, use your definite articles before your nouns. So now just use the correct form of the verb to speak here and use it accordingly like you would if it was gustar. Smoking is prohibited. Again, I start with say. And to smoke is fumar. Because I'm using two verbs in a row, the rule is you conjugate the first, leave the second alone. So the infinitive can mean to smoke, or sometimes an infinitive can mean ing, like antes de plus infinitive before blanking. So here's your phrase, and you need the verb to prohibit, and you need the correct form based off of your subject, which is smoking. So that is the passive and impersonal say. In a nutshell, you need to have one brain file for the impersonal say and one brain file for the passive say, how they are formed, what they're used to say, and that's it. There's really not much to it. Honestly, in the past I've seen this topic covered in Spanish 1, definitely by Spanish 2. It's a little late in the game for this one. It's just where it falls in our book and in our topics. So passive and impersonal say. Thanks for taking your notes.